Imagine a world where millions of people are saved from hunger, not by miracles, but by science and hard work. This is the story of Norman Borlaug, a man who helped change the world by growing more food in places where people were starving. Through his work in agriculture, Borlaug found ways to produce enough food to feed entire nations. His discoveries sparked the Green Revolution, a movement that lifted billions out of poverty and hunger. Today, we'll explore how one man's passion for farming saved lives and left a lasting impact on the world. What if one man's work could save over 1 billion people from hunger? Norman Borlaug did just that. Through his groundbreaking agricultural innovations, Borlaug not only fed starving nations but sparked a revolution that forever changed the way we grow food. His discoveries lifted entire countries out of famine and shaped the future of global food security. Stick around to learn how this humble scientist became the hero who fed the world. Norman Ernest Borlaug was born on March 25, 1914, on a farm in Cresco, Iowa, during a time when the world was much different. Raised in a rural, hard-working family, Norman grew up surrounded by the natural rhythms of farm life. His early years were shaped by the values of perseverance, practical problem-solving, and an intimate understanding of how much food production meant for survival. Though his family wasn't wealthy, they were resourceful, and like many rural families, Borlaug learned firsthand about the fragility of crops, the unpredictability of the seasons, and the backbreaking work that farming required. As a child, he witnessed crop failures, leading to hunger and hardship. These early experiences planted a seed in his heart, a desire to find better ways to grow food and improve farming. But before Borlaug became a global figure, his journey was far from linear. Education wasn't a priority for many farm kids in those days, but Borlaug was determined to go beyond the boundaries of his farm. In 1933, amidst the Great Depression, he enrolled at the University of Minnesota, where he initially struggled with academics but eventually found his calling in plant biology. The power of science and early research. Borlaug's time at university shaped him profoundly. He studied under prominent professors and researchers who were working to solve the pressing issues of disease-resistant crops and plant genetics. He earned his bachelor's degree in forestry, but it was his growing fascination with agriculture, especially plant pathology, that set the stage for his life's mission. In the early 1940s, while Borlaug was working on a Forest Service project, the world was plunged into World War II. During the war, Borlaug's research shifted to help with wartime efforts, and he worked as a biochemist developing adhesives for the military. But it was after the war, in 1944, that his career took an unexpected turn. The Rockefeller Foundation, seeking to address global hunger, had launched an ambitious program in Mexico to improve agricultural productivity. Borlaug, known for his expertise in plant diseases, was invited to join the program. This would become a pivotal chapter in his life and the world's food security. The Mexican Wheat Program and the Green Revolution. When Borlaug arrived in Mexico, the country's agricultural system was in crisis. Mexican farmers struggled to grow enough wheat to feed their population, with recurring crop diseases like rust blighting their fields. The soil was poor, the techniques outdated, and the yields too low. Mexico was importing a substantial portion of its wheat, which was a national vulnerability. Borlaug saw this challenge as an opportunity. He was relentless in experimenting with different varieties of wheat, crossbreeding plants in an attempt to create strains that could withstand both the environmental conditions and the ravages of disease. He focused on developing wheat that was resistant to rust, a devastating fungus that wiped out entire harvests. But Borlaug's methods were unconventional. To speed up his breeding experiments, he introduced what became known as shuttle breeding. He planted wheat in two distinct environments, one in the lowland areas of Mexico's summer season and one in the highlands during winter. This technique allowed him to produce 2 wheat crops per year instead of 1, which greatly accelerated the development of new wheat strains. Through years of tireless work, often in difficult, hot, and remote conditions, Borlaug finally succeeded. He developed high-yield, disease-resistant dwarf wheat varieties that not only grew faster but also produced significantly more grain per acre than traditional strains. The short-statured wheat plants were strong enough to support the heavy heads of grain without collapsing, which had been a major problem with earlier varieties. Saving millions in Mexico and beyond by the mid-1950s, the results of Borlaug's research were clear. Mexico had gone from being a wheat importer to a self-sufficient nation, and by 1963, it had become a wheat exporter. His success in Mexico didn't go unnoticed. The world was beginning to recognize that Borlaug's methods could have far-reaching impacts, especially in developing nations where hunger was rampant. Borlaug wasn't content with his achievements in Mexico. He had witnessed firsthand the pain of hunger in places like India and Pakistan, where political instability, poor infrastructure, and rapidly growing populations threatened food supplies. In the 1960s, these two nations were on the brink of mass starvation. When Borlaug arrived in India and Pakistan, the situation was dire. The two countries were in conflict, and hunger was widespread. But despite the challenges, Borlaug saw the potential for his new wheat varieties to make a difference. Against political pushback and logistical nightmares, he worked with local farmers and governments to introduce his high-yield wheat. The results were astonishing. Wheat production soared, and famine was averted. His success in these countries marked the beginning of what became known as the Green Revolution, a movement that transformed agricultural practices in developing nations around the world. Global impact and the Nobel Peace Prize. The Green Revolution wasn't just about wheat, it was about a broader change in agricultural practices. Borlaug's approach inspired innovations in rice, maize, and other crops, improving yields and food security across Asia and Latin America. Countries like the Philippines and China adopted similar techniques for rice cultivation, leading to a massive reduction in hunger. For his groundbreaking work, Borlaug was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970. The Nobel Committee recognized that his contributions had prevented mass starvation and helped to stabilize societies by reducing the pressures of hunger and food insecurity. Borlaug didn't just provide food, he helped create the conditions for peace and stability in many parts of the world. During his Nobel acceptance speech, Borlaug remained humble. He reminded the world that while his work had saved millions, the fight against hunger was far from over. He continued to advocate for advancements in agricultural science and was vocal about the need for continued innovation to meet the growing demands of the global population. Later years and legacy. Even in his later years, Borlaug didn't slow down. He traveled the globe, speaking about food security and the role of scientific innovation in agriculture. He also played a critical role in establishing the World Food Prize, an annual award that honors individuals who have made significant contributions to improving the world's food supply. Norman Borlaug was not without his critics. Some argued that the Green Revolution had environmental downsides, such as increased use of fertilizers and pesticides, which could harm ecosystems. Borlaug acknowledged these challenges but argued that feeding the world's population was a moral imperative. He believed that continued scientific advancement was key to balancing food production with environmental sustainability. Borlaug's death in 2009, at the age of 95, marked the end of a life of service to humanity, but his legacy continues. Today, his high-yield crops are still feeding millions, and his work has inspired countless scientists, farmers, and policymakers to continue fighting hunger. He is often credited with saving more lives than anyone else in history, a staggering thought, but one that reflects the magnitude of his contributions. A lifelong mission of feeding the world. Norman Borlaug's story is one of perseverance, faith in science, and a deep compassion for the world's most vulnerable people. He dedicated his life to solving one of humanity's greatest challenges, feeding a rapidly growing global population. Through his work, He proved that innovation, hard work, and a commitment to improving the lives of others can change the world. Borlaug's belief in the power of science and human ingenuity continues to inspire generations of agricultural researchers and policymakers. His Green Revolution showed that hunger isn't inevitable, it's a problem we can solve. His life reminds us that one person, armed with vision and determination, can truly make a difference on a global scale. Norman Borlaug's life is a powerful reminder that one person, with vision and determination, can truly change the world. Through his tireless work in agriculture, he brought hope to starving nations and sparked a global movement that continues to feed billions today. His legacy isn't just about science, it's about the belief that we can overcome even the greatest challenges when we dedicate ourselves to making a difference. Borlaug showed us that with the right tools and unwavering persistence, we can solve problems that seem impossible, and in doing so, leave a lasting impact on humanity. If you've been inspired by Norman Borlaug's incredible story and believe in the power of science and innovation to make a difference, don't stop here. Subscribe to Broken Bolthead for more stories of impactful figures and practical insights on how you can create a lasting legacy in your own life. If this video resonated with you, give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and stay tuned for more inspiring content. Together, let's continue to make a difference. Thank you for watching. If you're ready to keep learning and growing, don't forget to subscribe to Broken Bolthead for more inspiring stories and practical tips. Hit the like button if this video encouraged you, and share it with someone who needs a boost of motivation. Keep striving, keep learning, and remember, you have the power to make an impact. See you in the next video.